So I'd like to tell you the tale of Cuchulain and the cattle raid of Cooley, probably one of the most famous cattle raids in all of Irish history. And I must introduce you to a very rich farmer indeed. His name was Dara MacFeachna. And Dara MacFeachna had land which was very special indeed. Rich, fertile plains. Land which was the sort of land where all crops grew. But he also had herds as well. He had pigs and cattle and sheep. But more than anything, and which is what made him the richest of farmers, the most renowned of farmers, the most famous of farmers, was the fact that he looked after the brown bull of Cooley, which was the king's bull, the best bull in all of the land. But on this day, Dara MacFeachna was happy assessing his land. He had a river that ran along the boundaries of it. But as he looked, he had a lake too, a lake with teal and mallard upon it. The day of the lengthening order. And so he looked out and he saw all these daffodils. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high over vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils. Beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. Continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way, they stretched in never-ending line across the margin of the bay. The waves beside them danced, but they did out the sparkling waves in glee. A poet could not but be gay in such jocund company. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth to me the show had brought. And he was wealthy indeed, was Dara MacFeachna, one of the wealthiest of all of the farmers. But whilst he was gazing and gazing upon his land and celebrating the daffodils, something was being plotted on the other side of Ireland in Connacht. Maeve had gathered together some of the warriors, and she started to tease the king. But the king was used to this and he didn't bite. She said, well, it seems queens are in favour. I have more trinkets and gold and silver than you could ever possess, my dear husband, my dear king. But King Ailey just laughed and he said, maybe you do. Maybe you do indeed, but I have the white bull of Finnebanek, the grandest of all bulls in this land. But not in all of Ireland, she said, and stormed out of the palace gates. She called instantly to Macroth and said, I want the brown bull of Cooley, even if it is just for a moment. I need the brown bull of Cooley here. I'll show my husband. And so I want you to obtain it in whatever insidious, sly ways that you can perceive. Please go and find the brown bull of Cooley and bring it back here. And so Macroth and a few of the warriors went to the land where Dara MacFeachna was sitting at this point by the river. He was looking out at the river, and this time he was looking at the alder trees. Their reddish catkins were drooping upon the branches, and it was full of brown cones from last year. And as he was gazing again, not this time at the daffodils, but at the alder trees, he wondered. He wondered and he thought, and then he saw a black shape upon the tree. And he looked at it for quite some time and realised it was a crow. And as he looked at that black shape, as he gazed upon it, suddenly he felt that he was touched by magic. He could hear a lilting, trance-like voice in his head. And it said, beside the river, king of water, crowing canopy, omen giver, protector of cattle, knowledge of milk. Take up this challenge, go forth with a shield. What on earth could this mean? He wondered. But then suddenly, almost as if in answer to his wondering, he heard men dismounting from horses and the jingle of tackle. Macroth had arrived. Dara instantly heard this and went to the gate which separated his land from the footpath. Also, his warriors had joined him as well and asked the question, why are you here? He never did like Macroth. He always thought he had sly, serpentine, insidious ways, and he recognised them immediately, purely in the countenance. And as he approached him, he said, why? Why are you here? He repeated himself again. He said, why? We have a gift for you. And they lifted off a chest from one of the horse wagons and opened it. Now Dara was a rich man, but when he looked, he couldn't believe it. There was more gold and silver and trinkets he'd ever seen before ever in his life. What's this about? Why, it's a gift. A gift at what cost? What conditions are on this gift? We would just like to borrow, just for a little while, the brown ball of Cooley. Well, it's not really mine to lend out. It's the king's. King Concobar MacNisa, the High King himself. And everyone bowed in respect. Well, perhaps we'll take it back then. Perhaps we'll take it back again with us. And perhaps you won't see the brown ball of Cooley. Perhaps we will not have the loan of this ball. But he looked, and he wondered, and he said, oh, we'll come in for the evening and we'll decide in the morning. And Mac Ross said, great, because if you bring the ball over to Connacht, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll give you land and title too. And so he nodded his head, didn't say a word, and let them in. But that night the warriors started to show off, started to smile and glee, were getting very drunk and started to boast how great the army of Mayhems was, and that they would come over. They would take the bull by force. Dara MacFigna was a warrior as well as a farmer, and he was distraught at this. He was angry at this. His honour was everything, and he kicked them off the land and said, you want the brown ball of Cooley, come back and get it by force yourselves, and we'll be ready for you. Mac Ross, if he had a tail, it would have been between his legs, for he was not happy with this outcome. But he rode as fast as he could with the warriors to Maeve. She stood there, her fiery, thick, red hair cascading down her body, almost to her feet. Her eyes were a fiery red, or so it seemed. He was nervous, he was scared, he didn't know what to do, but she knew the answer. He's not going to give you the ball, is he? No, he said. And then he was quite surprised, for she simply smiled. And in that smile was probably scarier than any temper or rage or wrath you would ever see. For it was a terrifying smile of pure delight, just as I expected.